The baby hadn't reached for anything in 11 days. When she finally did, it was toward the dog's face. Her parents thought that was the danger. They were wrong. The danger was in the walls. Rosie was 8 months old and had been unusually still for almost 2 weeks. Not sick still, she had no fever, no crying, no symptoms that would send a parent to the pediatrician. Just quieter, less reaching, less tracking objects across the room with her eyes. Her mother, Simone Delacroix, had a word for it that she used only in her own head: dimming, like someone had turned the baby's brightness down a notch. She mentioned it once to her husband, Edouard, and he said, "She's probably just going through a phase." Simone didn't argue. She had been arguing with herself about it for 11 days already. Their Bernese Mountain Dog, Bernard, was 3 years old and 112 pounds. He was the kind of dog who moved through a house like weather, large and slow and warm. He had been introduced to Rosie carefully, properly with every protocol the veterinarian had recommended. He was never left alone with her. He was always supervised. He had shown nothing but patience, the patient watchfulness of a large animal that had accepted a new, small, fragrant thing into its household. The morning it happened, Simone had Rosie on the living room floor on her playmat, 3 feet from where Bernard was lying. This was normal. This was the supervised setup they used every day. Bernard was on his side, head up, the way he always was near the baby, watching, not approaching, not pushing, just present. Rosie was reaching, not toward her toys, toward Bernard. Both arms, that full body reach of an infant who has decided she wants something, leaning from the waist, fingers spread. She was making a sound Simone had not heard in 11 days, something between a laugh and a word. Bernard did not move away. He did not move toward her. He held very still and let her reach, and when her fingers touched the fur on the side of his face, he exhaled through his nose very slowly and closed his eyes. Simone was filming on her phone. She caught the whole thing: the reach, the contact, the exhale. She sent it to Edouard at work without a caption. He called back in 4 minutes. He sounded the way she felt. That wasn't the part that mattered. The part that mattered happened the next morning, when Bernard would not stay in any room of the house except the nursery. He followed Simone when she brought Rosie in. He stood at the crib during the morning nap. He lay in the doorway during the afternoon nap. When Simone moved Rosie to the living room for floor time, Bernard positioned himself on the side of the room closest to the nursery wall and began a behavior she had never seen before. He pressed his nose to the baseboard. He held it there for 30 seconds. He moved 6 inches and pressed his nose to the baseboard again. He did this for the length of the nursery wall, methodically, like he was reading something. Simone watched him for a full minute. Then she called Edouard. "If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one." Edouard came home early. He watched Bernard move along the baseboard of the nursery. He said, "That's the exterior wall." He was a structural engineer. He knew that wall. He knew it was an exterior wall on the north-facing side of the house, partially below grade, adjacent to the garage. He said, "When did he start doing this?" "This morning." Edouard went to the garage. The carbon monoxide detector in the garage had a cracked battery terminal. It had been reading 0 since. He checked the manufacturer date on the back. At least 6 weeks. The gas water heaters shared a flue with the garage ventilation. The flue cap had a partial blockage from a bird nest that had settled in over the previous spring. He found it with a flashlight in 4 minutes. The CO levels in the garage were elevated, not catastrophically, not immediately dangerous to adults spending normal periods of time there. But the nursery was directly adjacent to the garage, on the other side of that baseboard, and Rosie spent 10 to 12 hours a day in that room. The pediatric environmental health specialist, Dr. Kwabena Ofosu, who reviewed the case, said that chronic low-level carbon monoxide exposure in infants presented as behavioral quieting, reduced interactive engagement. He used the clinical language, but what it meant, in plain terms, was the baby going dim. 11 days, exactly how long the dimming had been happening. Bernard had been lying outside the nursery every night for 3 weeks. Not new behavior. He often lay near where Rosie slept. But starting 3 weeks ago, according to Simone's memory, he had stopped lying in his usual corner near the door and begun positioning himself directly against the wall. The north-facing wall, the exterior wall, the wall between Rosie and the garage. Has your dog ever done something near your baby that you couldn't explain until much later? Leave it in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The bird nest was removed. The flue was professionally cleaned and capped. The CO detector was replaced, all 3 of them in the house. Rosie was assessed by Dr. Ofosu's team and by her pediatrician. At her 9-month appointment, her doctor noted that she seemed more alert, more interactive, more like herself. Simone said, "Yes, she's back. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one." Bernard no longer presses his nose to the baseboard. He lies in the doorway of the nursery, still but differently now. Relaxed, head down, eyes half closed. The posture of an animal that has finished a job it set itself. Rosie reaches for him every morning, and he holds still and lets her find his face with both hands, and exhales that slow exhale that means everything is where it should be. The next story involves a mother who noticed her dog had stopped sleeping at night, and what he had heard through the walls that she couldn't.